Hey guys, Jim Daneker here. I wanted to do a video that's a little different than anything I've ever done before, and this one's not going to be about synthesizers or, anything gear related. This one's more about the practical day-to-day life as a professional in the music business, but at the same time, I think it could apply to pretty much anybody. And here's why. I'm kind of doing this as a way to hold myself accountable, and I think it'll make sense when I get into this. I've always headed into this time of year, end of December, early January, with, big dreams and hopes of what I want to accomplish in the coming year. And I think a lot of you are probably the same. We all have New Year's resolutions. I want to check this off. I want to accomplish this. I want to, whatever. But with very few exceptions, I have failed in two big ways. Setting goals and planning to achieve them. My wife is going to really enjoy this because it's a huge opportunity for her to say, "I told you so." But ever since we've been married, I've watched her every week sit down, usually on a Sunday, and she maps out the entire week in excruciating detail. And I've always respected that. And she's tried to get me to do it, but I've always kind of resisted it because on one hand, I'm so aware of the clock ticking and I've always got all these things I want to do. But I've often thought, well, if I spend all this time planning the week, that's time I could be spent doing other things. But I have to say she's right. As I've read books on productivity and the habits of highly successful people, stuff like that, this is a big deal. And, we've all heard the quote that failure to plan is essentially planning to fail. And it's taken me, almost 50 years to realize how true that is in my own life. With a few exceptions, like when I did my Ad Alta record several years ago, that, as I look back on that, I realize the reason I accomplished that is because I had a concrete plan ahead of me, and I came up with a plan to achieve that goal. Well, for one thing, I set the goal in the first place. Doing a Kickstarter campaign really lit a fire under me because it put dates in front of me that I had to accomplish certain things. And as I've reflected on that, I realized, man, I've got to do that as a regular pattern in my life, or I'm never going to accomplish what I want. So, going into this year, I really spent some time over Christmas just thinking about, what are some things I want to accomplish in the coming year? How do I accomplish those things? And so I just want to share a couple things with you that maybe you can put into practice as well. I'm also doing this to put it out there as a way of holding myself accountable to say, all right, here's how I set out to tackle this year. And so I want to come back to this next year and see how I did. So here we go. Couple random thoughts. Number one, I know for me as a creative person, I'm always brainstorming. I've always got, a million things I want to do. And I realized, there's only so much time in a day. There's only 24 hours every day. And I've come to the realization I just can't accomplish everything I would like to do. I would like to grow my YouTube channel. I would like to write a book someday. I would like to do another record. Actually, I'd like to do several records. I would like to build my Backstage Pass software business. Any one of those things is a full-time job, and I've had to really come up with some priorities and figure out, well, what are my goals? And so that realization that there's only so much time, what do I really, really want, and how do I achieve that? Here are my, bullet points. Number one, set reasonable goals and set a reasonable number of goals with the fact in mind that there's only so much time in a day and in a week and a year. I've had to come up with what are an attainable number of things that I think I can accomplish. So for me, my top three are make another record, write music for licensing, and just write music in general. That's a big thing for me, and I'll get into that more in a second. And grow my Backstage Pass software business. Those three things, again, they're all things that take an extraordinary amount of time, but if I'm willing to work my tail off, I think they're attainable. So I've spent some time coming up with a weekly schedule and really, really looking at this in detail and figuring out, first on a macro level, okay, how do I write music every week for a new record? How do I write music for licensing every week? How do I do all the things that go into my software business? Because that alone is several full-time jobs. So I sat down and I mapped out what the week looks like, knowing that there are things that I have to do that I don't really enjoy doing, like all the admin stuff. That's going to look different for all of us. So I'm going to designate Monday mornings as my admin time to answer emails, research things I need to research, answer phone calls or return phone calls, stuff like that. And I'm going to do the bulk of that on Mondays so that Tuesday through Saturday, I don't have to think about that as much. I'll give myself maybe 15 minutes a day to, just make sure there's nothing pressing. But generally, Tuesday through Saturday, those are going to be concentrated work days for me. So let's take a look at that. And again, this is just what I'm going to do. And I think this should work. And the thing is to be flexible. One week to another, it might have to look different. If I've got a pressing deadline for Backstage Pass, I might fill in some of these blocks more with Backstage Pass things than other things. But another thing I think is important is to give yourself some time every day for things that you're passionate about. For me, one of the biggest frustrations as I look back on the past year is I hardly wrote any music. And that's one thing I think I'm really supposed to be doing with my time. And so I'm going to build in time every week, even if it's an hour a day in the morning, so that I feel like I'm accomplishing something that I'm passionate about. And doing that every day, I think will give me the satisfaction of feeling like I'm accomplishing something. And the more I read about this kind of stuff, the more I think that's really, really important. So whatever that is for you, if you're having to do stuff that you would consider drudge work or just work that's helping you accomplish something necessary, do that, spend a chunk of your day on that, but give yourself that time, whether it's, whatever time of the day you like to do that kind of stuff. For me, I enjoy writing music a lot of times at night. I feel more creative at night. So I'm going to put in a block, after dinner to work on just that creative outlet. So let's talk about the calendar. For me, and this is just what I think will work for me, you'll have to do what works for you. Monday is going to be more of my, office day, administrative day, stuff that just needs to be done around the house or whatever. 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, email, miscellaneous to-do stuff, phone calls, returning calls, making calls. And then I'll give myself an hour, say from 11 to 12, to just have at least an hour on Mondays that I spend on creative stuff, because that's where my heart is. And then 12 to 12:30. 30 minutes for lunch. That's the time of day that I'll allow myself to look at my phone, and I'll talk about that in a second. Answer, stuff from, Facebook Messenger or whatever. But then after that, 12:30 to 4:30, spend those 4 hours working on stuff that needs to be done. That's going to be my flex time every week. If I need to do video content, I'll do that. If I need to work on, extra stuff for Backstage Pass, I'll do that. In a week that I might need more time for something else, I'll do that. And then I think as a creative person who sits in a studio all day, it's important for me to get out and get a breath of fresh air. So when I can, I'll take 4:30 to 6:30 for just taking a walk. I try to walk an hour a day, go outside. That tends to give me creative fuel, tends to clear my head, allows me time to just think about stuff, do some exercising, and I find that gives me, again, a breath of fresh air to tackle another couple hours. Where most people sit and watch TV, which to me is one of the most horrendous wastes of time you can possibly do with your life. But hey, I'm in a field that's not typical. So if that's your thing, great, whatever, no judgment. But for me, that's another 4 hours that I can do something that helps me achieve my goals. So whether it's writing music, writing for my next album project, writing for licensing, whatever. Because I tend to be more creative at night, that's another block that I can use. And then one of the most important things that I've read many times is get off your phone. Instead of spending the last portion of your day staring at a glowing screen, which is really bad for you, I know for me, I want to enrich my brain. So I'm going to take the last half hour of the day to, have a little snack, whatever, and read. Not a screen, but a book. Read something that's going to help you with your business or with your life or whatever. Help you to grow as a person. So that's my outline for Mondays. Tuesdays through Saturdays. Similar, but since I can get the major admin block out of the way, I'll give myself 15 minutes a day, 7:45 to 8, to check, make sure there's no pressing emails, return anything pressing, but get out of that admin mode and get into creative mode. So every day kind of follows a template. 4-hour block in the morning, half hour for lunch, another 4-hour block in the afternoon, 2 hours off to walk, exercise, clear your head, get out of your chair, spend time with your family. And then again, if you're wired like I am, you can get back to work for another couple hours. For me, 6:30 to 10, give or take. I think it's important to be flexible, but do some more writing, do whatever you need to do, research or whatever. That's it. Find your blocks of time that work for you, and don't be a slave to it necessarily. These are just guidelines, but from all the research that's been done out there, this tends to work for people, especially creative people. And then I think it's important to take Sunday. Historically, what I believe, I think it's important to take a Sabbath. I think there's a huge upside to taking a day of rest. Without getting into the spiritual aspect of that, I think it's important to rest. We need that. And so wherever possible, you take that day to spend time away from all this stuff, because your brain needs it, your body and mind need it, your spirit needs it. And it's important to take that day and reflect. And, it's not that you can't do some things, get some things done that you need to do, but I think this is what's going to work for me. Putting it out there as a way of holding myself accountable, and then I'm going to check back in with myself a year later and see how this has worked out. Hopefully I'll have some things to show for it, and if you're going to apply this stuff, hopefully you will too. It's really important, I can't hammer this home enough, to figure out what you're passionate about. What is it you want to accomplish? Figure out how to set goals that tie into your passions. Because if you're just working on stuff that's drudgery, it's no wonder we don't accomplish it, And so if you're in the middle of crazy deadlines, which that's where I live, so much of my life, I've always got a deadline hanging over me, and it's frustrating because, in my case, like when I'm working on stuff that is related to what I do, but it's not what I'm really passionate about, which in my case is writing music. That's ultimately what I feel like I'm best at and why I was put here. I can spend so much time doing everything peripheral around that it keeps me from doing what I'm passionate about. So figure out what those passions are. Figure out how to set goals that help you attain those passions, that help you work towards the goals that are tied to those passions, and make it happen. Figure out what works for you. And again, even if it's just an hour a day, if you're swamped with other stuff that you're not crazy about, that's just part of it. We all have to deal with that. But even in those seasons where you've got a ton on your plate, try to give yourself an hour a day to just switch everything else off and focus on what you are really, really, what makes your heart beat, what makes it skip a beat, what makes you just thrive and happy to be alive. Okay, last thing, procrastination. I would confess that I have struggled with this. I think, again, a lot of these books that I've read talk about the fact that most creative people struggle with this. I don't know why it is. I don't know why we're wired this way, but I have been horrifically bad about procrastinating at times. And a lot of that has come down to not having concrete goals set for myself, but rather just being nebulous and, well, I want to accomplish this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And so I pay the price for that when I have a general sense of what I want to accomplish, but unless I've got concrete deadlines and goals, I find that it's so easy to procrastinate. And I want to read you a quote that I stumbled on. There's a lot of quotes out there about this, but this one has really hit home for me. And it is, procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God owes you another opportunity to do what you had time to do. I don't know about you, but that hits me square between the eyes. Time is a gift. That's why they call, dad joke. That's why they call it the present. But one of my biggest regrets in life is wasted time. I absolutely hate that I have wasted time. It's time I'm never going to get back. And it's time I could have, who knows what I could have out by now if I had not wasted so much time. I don't want to beat myself up too much about it. We've all done it. But, my brother, I've talked to my brother about this one time, and we were talking about social media, and we all know how big a time drain that can be. But he said something that I'll never forget. It was something, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, does this add value to my life? And of course the answer is no. Social media generally does not add value to your life. One of my resolutions for this year, if you can call it that, is to figure out a way to stop staring at a screen any more than I have to. For me, it's crucial to my business. It's so much, if not all, of my business has come from social media. So on one hand, it's a necessary evil, but on the other hand, also going back to my wife, I have so much respect for her because her way of using it is to post her content, post whatever it is she's trying to get out there, and then get off of it. And I thought, man, that's the right way to use it. Unfortunately, I would have to confess that for me, whether it's at breakfast or whatever, I'll spend way too much time sitting there, and before you know it, 30 minutes has gone by because I'm scrolling through, find myself just looking at stuff. And I look back at that and I'm like, that's not adding a thing to my life. In fact, it's stealing from my life. It's stealing from my productivity. It's stealing from my ability to accomplish things that I am put here to do. And so I just want to encourage all of us, me included, to figure out how to put that in its place. And so again, this whole video is just about a way of holding myself accountable, a way of putting out there that here's how I'm going to try and go into this year. And I hope this is useful to you. I think this is all stuff that anybody in any creative field can relate to. Time is a gift. It is one of the most precious gifts we're given. And, looking back on this past year or two, I've lost friends to COVID or to other things. And it's another aspect that has really lit a fire in me to not waste the precious gift of time. So I hope this is useful to you. I hope that it's encouraging to you. I hope I don't sound like I'm beating myself up too much, but appropriately. I want to be better about how I use what I've been given, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And with that in mind, I want to be present. I want to be accountable. And so there you go. If this has been useful to you, please would you hit the old like and subscribe button. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd appreciate it, because I do need to grow. That's one of my things I want to try and squeeze in there, is how to grow my YouTube channel, because that's, like it or not, that's a big part of what we do nowadays. And so your help with that would be appreciated. So there you go. Have a great 2022. And I hope you accomplish your goals and your dreams. And so, yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.